Everything in this video is my opinion. SDF said if something like pay to win happens in this game, criticize us harshly. Alright SDF, let's get started. Brothers and sisters, for almost 3 years, Ironmace pretended to be the good guys, and they have been feeding us a narrative that they are a passionate indie studio. But today, I will show you how I believe Ironmace is actually more like a well-funded, information-controlling corporate startup whose success appears to be built on theft, lies, and manipulation. Hence, why I'm wearing my corporate costume instead of my trusty cleric frock. Unfortunately, most creators in this community have NDAs or contracts with Ironmace, sometimes secret, so you won't hear the honest, whole truth from them. In this community, telling the truth is unprofitable. Even worse, some of the biggest streamers in Dark and Darker were being personally managed by Ironmace's former head of marketing the entire time he was with Ironmace. And some streamers out there are even former Ironmace employees themselves. In this community, glazing Ironmace, and especially SDF, is profitable, but telling the truth is not. Here's a brief summary of my beliefs, which I will cover today in this video. First off, Ironmace is a gaming corporation with deep Nexon roots, and they are larger than most people think. Next, there's been a lot of false promises, lies, and general untrustworthiness, especially out of the leadership. Next, there's been increasingly greedy pay-to-win monetization practices, despite their former claims against this. Next, there's been a lot of information control and manipulation of public opinion. Next, they have a long history of bad hiring and management of their employees, especially remote workers. Next, Ironmace leadership is very out of touch, especially their leader, SDF, Juhoon Choi. Next, RMT, real money trading, and cheating are both growing problems and out of control, and Ironmace has no real solution to stop it. Next, there is no roadmap and no accountability, by design. Next, they have a long history of late, buggy, unfinished, incohesive, and imbalanced content updates, which are sometimes then removed. Next, long history, again, of repeated bad decisions in so many categories. This is Ironmace's reputation they've earned for themselves. Now, I moved pretty quickly in this video, so if you don't want to miss any information on screen, you're going to have to pause and read the text. Feel free to do that anytime in the video. 1 year ago, I made a constructive criticism video which accurately predicted the current bad state of Dark and Darker's gameplay. If you have free time, go watch it and read the 600 plus passionate comments below the video. Now, Ironmace banned that video for a while, and as expected, most of the issues I talked about over a year ago have only become worse over time. The core gameplay loop has worsened, new content is still late, broken, or undelivered, the gear disparity is still very big, the power gap has worsened, RMT and cheating are out of control now, Ironmace is making the same repeated mistakes in multiple categories, Ironmace is ignoring the most played game modes by far, which are solos and normals. Well, this week they removed solos and duos from the game, and they limited normals to just commons. So what's the point of rares and uncommons? I mean, what are they doing? Look, today I'm releasing another video, and this time I'm going to share with you some of my personal experiences with unprofessional Ironmace employees and former leaders. In my opinion, there's a lot of unethical stuff behind the scenes that has been going on for a long time, and I'm not a lawyer, but it looks worse than what I'm telling you, okay? I mean, because of the severity and sensitivity of some of these claims, I can't tell you everything. I gotta hold some of these cards close. I'm sure you can understand. I'll tell you what I can. Now, it hurts me to make this video. I have been a passionate lover of Dark and Darker for almost 3 years, maybe not the past year. I've lost faith in them, but for the first 2 years, I was hardcore. I was in their playtests almost 3 years ago. I had a YouTube that I ran actively for a year. I did Twitch off and on for like 4 to 5 months. Man, in this community, you know me as a shepherd of new players, as a cleric, and the first video in my new player guide series is still to this day the most watched homegrown Dark and Darker YouTube video on planet Earth. And I want to thank you all for that. Lastly, before we begin, I'm sure some of you have a lot of questions for me. Others might not care who I am, and I want to be respectful of your time as always. So I'm going to answer all these questions at the end of this video. Like, why did I cut over an hour from this video? Or where have I been the past almost 11 months? And what's the future content of this channel? So until then, please enjoy pictures of my cats in case you've been missing them from my streams. There are some very important concepts I would like you to consider throughout the video. The first is words versus actions. As we all know, words are cheap and can be used to manipulate. The way to build good trust and good reputation is for your actions to consistently match your words over a long period of time. Those of us veterans who have been here for 2.5 years have seen a long pattern of Ironmace's words not matching their actions. Next, I want you to put yourself in Ironmace's shoes and think, is this something a passionate indie gaming studio would do? Or is this something a corporate startup would do? A corporate startup would care more about optics and performative actions. However, a good indie studio would be passionate about making a quality game and would attack problems directly instead of denying or downplaying. Next, gaslighting is an incredibly insidious tactic. Master gaslighters are amazing at changing your understanding of reality. Next, I want you to consider if their decisions help the average player more, or do they help RMTers more? My first claim is that Ironmace is a gaming corporation with deep Nexon roots and big corporate investors. So, first of all, you should know that the two main founders of Ironmace, Joo-hoon Choi, also known as SDF, and Terrence Park, were both in leadership positions at what was the 14th largest gaming corporation in the world at the time of research, Nexon. If you somehow don't know Nexon, please just Google Nexon reputation. A lot of good reading there. My point is, it takes a certain type of person to get hired into these positions, and these two self-admit to helping create exploitative and greedy practices during their time at Nexon. So, my question to you is, do you really think two former executives have changed? Or do you think they're using their corporate playbook and skills against us? I've seen and heard that a lot of you think Terry's a good guy and SDF is the out-of-touch boss man, but you may not know that Terrence is behind most of the monetization practices and is basically the money guy. So I might personally put SDF at most fault, but I believe Terry's up there with him. So we know Ironmace is no indie studio. Last I heard, they had over 130 employees, they have multiple floors of offices, and they are in multiple buildings. No small indie studio, okay? If you look deeper, you'll see investments in Ironmace from people like Hybe IM's CEO and outside director, who are both Nexon executives. Again, it seems like Ironmace still has those ex-Nexon executive relationships. Also, there was some controversy in Korean media where the executives tried to downplay, dismiss, and claim they didn't invest in Ironmace, but later this information became public anyways, and they admitted it. If you don't know, Hybe IM is a subsidiary or owned by Hybe Corp, which is one of the largest South Korean corporations, and it is the largest, #1 entertainment corporation in South Korea. They own and manage BTS. Finally, I decided to not dive deeper into their investments in this video. I'll just mention that there are strong rumors that Dark and Darker is no longer on the typical AWS servers. Yep, you remember when all that server migration happened? I wonder if everyone has been playing on 10-cent servers for months. And I do wonder how much Chinese investment or deals Ironmace has done. When I consider various factors, it really makes sense why Ironmace stopped region locking China, why they continue to allow cross-server play despite all the cheating, and why they won't take serious action against RMT. We'll discuss their performative actions on RMT in that later section. Next section, false promises, lies, and untrustworthiness. They have a long history of it. So, from the beginning, Ironmace had a very strong false narrative which painted themselves as the victims who were fighting back against a big greedy corporation. This narrative was a major factor in the hype bandwagon and support in the West. We now know this narrative was false. First, they proved themselves to be just like Nexon, with their reversal on their pay-to-win and monetization strategies, which we'll talk about in the next section. Second, they have been found guilty in South Korean courts for the theft of trade secrets. Misappropriation is theft in this case. So you should know that both sides have appealed, both Ironmace and Nexon, and it is very possible that Ironmace will face much larger fines. Also, since they were found guilty of trade secret theft, I'm not a lawyer, but it appears this reopens the door for criminal investigation for the criminal case, okay? Not just a civil case. If you're convicted criminally, that means potential prison time. Yikes. Look, throughout this video, you will see many examples of lying, and many shades of lying, so I won't cover much here. One thing I'd like to mention is that us hold the line users that supported Ironmace and paid extra money for the test server access, until this week, they haven't really been using the test server. They haven't updated it in such a long, long time. The last time they used it, ages ago, Grayson was blaming the players for its unpopularity. Look, this is a pet peeve of mine. As both a leader and a follower, it really pisses me off. I mean, I believe it's a leader's responsibility to design thoughtful systems which encourage the desired behaviors of their followers or employees or whatever. For example, they could have offered bluestone shards for certain amounts of playtime. They could have had anti-idle detection. You could have put new content in there. You could have given us faster leveling instead of disrespecting our time and making us grind and level on a test server. Same thing for gear. They could have given us gear instead of forcing us to grind for it. Really makes no sense. And so on. There's so many more ideas. Look, finally, there were secret relationships with streamers and, in my opinion, major conflicts of interest for the former head of marketing, Jordan Taylor, also known as Soma. And he claims Ironmace knew about this at the time of hiring. We'll talk about that in detail in another section. Next, Ironmace has increasingly greedy pay-to-win monetization practices despite their former adamant claims against this. So, here we are. This is an early access game with loot boxes, gambling mechanics. By the way, those loot boxes, you can get the strongest items in the game. Artifacts. Fucking stupid. Lots of cosmetics in a surprisingly large microtransaction shop. They tried to get us to pay for social spaces, which were promised, I believe, over 2 years ago. And recently, they released a 3-month seasonal DLC, pay-to-win DLC, in their shitty early access game. Remember when they tried to get us to purchase all the additional classes with redstone shards? Yes, despite early access, Ironmace wanted you to buy Sorcerer and Druid and Warlock and so on. So scummy. I mean, wow. But a lot of the community either forgot or doesn't even know that that happened many years ago. Also, here's a point I've heard talked about never. What I think is incredibly scummy is their downgrading of the basic torch in order to sell more torch skins, in my opinion. Yeah, someone actually took the time to downgrade and make the model of the torch skin look crappier just so they can sell more of those microtransaction torches. Also, do you remember the cat skin? It was the first skin in Dark and Darker history to have +2 stats instead of +1. And it was on agility at a time when the move speed meta was really strong. By the way, SDF thinks pay to win is fun. Yeah. And finally, let's talk about this scummy pay to win temporary seasonal DLC. Okay? First of all, wealth buys the strongest gear and weapons in the game. So, if you have a lot of wealth, death is not as punishing. There's less risk in the game. You can bounce back from your deaths and fails much quicker. And you have a better success rate and better chance at surviving, at looting, at questing, at PvP, farming, at bossing. You're better at all of it. DLC users can sell more loot, which means they have faster turnaround and they progress faster, which is huge. That means they acquire wealth faster, which makes them stronger, less risk, and everything we just talked about. Gold coin bags are a massive advantage, especially early. Each costs thousands of gold and saves an immense amount of space, of your limited, valuable stash space. Having these also helps speed progression a lot, especially in the beginning. You can spend your money on better gear sets instead of gold storage, like other average players have to. Even worse, the market slots were taken from the Legendary Edition paying players of the game. Gold coin bags were taken from all the AP farmers. Look, we could keep talking about this. I'll just say, before each character had 10 market slots, so that means there was like 70 to 100 market slots per account, and now it's down to 10. Ugh. Let's move on. Okay, I want to share one more thing with you. This just happened. As you may know, Ironmace has started their own podcast. You can get Ironmace propaganda direct from them now. They had their first episode, and they deleted the VOD. People were upset, and Odin promised that the VOD for the second episode would not be deleted. Of course, you can't trust Ironmace, or especially Odin. The VOD was deleted, but don't worry, I saved it. And I'd like to show you this moment. In this clip, Ironmace is debuting the major planned feature for Next Wipe.
You know, we want to put in like one kind of big pillar system each season, right? We're going to give you guys a lot more customized, control with it, but then you have to actually rent the servers. It's like, renting your own Battlefield server or renting or having your own Rust server. I think.
Yes, you heard that correctly. The feature that Ironmace has been promising for over a year, our social spaces, Ironmace wants you to pay to access those features. The early access game with all these microtransactions, Ironmace wants you to pay for features they've been talking about. Oh man, what's next? Quivers for $2? This is ridiculous. This was the only time I saw W's in the chat was for this social space feature, but when they announced you had to pay for it, people were not happy. In Tavern Table 3, they claimed that the social space wouldn't be ready, so they had to scrap it for next season and postpone it. I think the real reason is the community really did not like it, and so they knew they couldn't push this. Ironmace loves to test the community and see how they can squeeze them. But anyways, I want to show you something very interesting, because I think Terry says the quiet part out loud, and we can kind of see what they think.
Like, one of the things we're looking is like, oh man, we do envy like what Facepunch has built up with, that Rust community and stuff. It's like, oh, okay, I mean, they not like that kind of structure.
Right.
That's what I'm talking about.
Okay, so Terry kind of says the quiet part out loud. Look, I've been a Rust veteran for over 3,000 hours. I can tell you Rust community management is good. They've been through so many community managers, and I think most people will agree, although there are a few really amazing humans that play that game, the average person in that community is pretty toxic. Okay, it's a pretty toxic community. The game, the way they've designed it, just fosters the toxicity. They've got you can handcuff people and bag them, and let's not even get into it. It's So I think what they really envy from Facepunch is the monetization system that Facepunch has built. If you're not aware, Facepunch releases a whole set of microtransaction skins every single week. Okay, brand new skins. They also have lots of DLCs, some of them kind of expensive, more expensive than the game itself when it goes on sale. Some of their microtransactions are over $1,000. Like, there's a real Rust economy. Gambling sites are out of control. Sponsorships. It's like CSGO. I don't have time to get into that. Go watch CoffeeZilla's video on microtransactions in Valve. All right, finally, I just want to share this screenshot. SDF literally thinks pay to win is a good game mechanic. If you've been in this community a while, then you know firsthand that Ironmace's communication is horrible. But I think that's by design. Most communications are only released through SDF, Terry, or Grayson. Also, Ironmace appears to control and moderate most of the public places of discussion about the game. That means the Discord, the Dark and Darker subreddit, the DC Inside Korean Dark and Darker forums, or they speak through contracted streamers in their Twitch chat, or in Q&As where they never ask the hard questions. It's a glaze fest. All of this helps them shape the narrative around the game and control it. Grayson Johnson, the Ironmace community manager, and some other staff and volunteers have moderation control over the subreddit. This used to not be allowed, but Reddit recently quietly changed that, unfortunately. Regardless, I'm sure you can see the potential for abuse. Also, there are strong allegations that they also moderate the largest forum for Dark and Darker in South Korea, the part of it that's Dark and Darker, DC Inside. It can be very hard to find up-to-date information on this game since Ironmace keeps changing where they put that information. Sometimes it's in Discord announcements or SDF's propaganda kitchen, or maybe it's in a live Q&A with a contracted streamer, but maybe the VOD's not enabled, or maybe SDF might be in some contracted streamer's chat just leaking upcoming info, which, by the way, sometimes affects the economy and gameplay adversely. Like when he leaked the Wyvern stuff recently, that update, and a bunch of people bought mallets, right? Ugh. Next, Ironmace often actively censors, hides, or deletes information which makes Ironmace look bad. There are so many examples, and that's a phrase you're going to hear me say over and over tonight. I'm not going to provide receipts on everything because it's way too much work tracking down all this old content, which is partially scrubbed from the internet. But you veterans will remember. Now, here's an example. As you may know, the Korean police raided the Ironmace studio, as well as the homes of SDF and Terry. Keep in mind, this is not your local police. This is serious police, okay? This is the Security Investigation Unit. These guys handle cases of industrial espionage, all right? After the raid, Grayson claimed the police did come and check. It was a quick process and nothing was found. Yeah, I bet it was a quick process with the police kicking down your front door. Now, Grayson also claims nothing was found. However, Korean media reached out to the Security Investigation Unit, and the officer in charge states, "We secured relevant data through the search and seizure and are currently investigating whether there are any problems with the data." Later, this data was turned over to prosecutors. So to me, Ironmace appears to be downplaying the truth and trying to reshape the narrative. Another blatant example is, as you may know, cheating has gotten very bad. It used to be mostly a problem in Asia and OCE servers, but it's progressed and it is now a widespread problem felt on all servers. Ironmace has no serious proposal or solution to fix this problem. Instead, they recently made a private Discord for only balladeer-level streamers and creators to get help. Once again, Ironmace is providing secret special treatment to streamers, while the general player base has to suffer. Clearly, Ironmace's anti-cheat and stream sniping systems don't work. When announcing this group, Grayson said he would ban anyone sharing the existence of it. So I asked why, and he said it was only drama bait. That seemed like a bad answer, so I asked him to clarify, and he ignored the question while responding to others. I really don't like how he turns things around on creators, claiming this is drama bait. In my opinion, Grayson is a bad community manager who I've seen use threats and gaslighting against many people many times. He's not someone I would want representing my game. Next, Ironmace also uses their information control tactics a lot in their Discord. they're pretty heavy-handed with their moderation. They're constantly deleting or muting negative, but honest, discussion about their game. They often delete or time out things which make them look bad. They are often very quick and sensitive to moderate. There are sometimes really good memes that are funny in the meme channel, and they get hundreds of positive emoji reactions, but they are quickly moderated and deleted if they present Ironmace in a negative light. So you got to catch them quick. Ironmace used to be very blatant with their Discord poll vote manipulation. In the playtest days, about 2.5 years ago, I used to enjoy looking at the votes of the community because it was a good representation of public opinion on each update. Later on, though, I noticed sometimes the negative votes would be reset back to 0, and the positive vote emojis would stay there. So the negative votes would go back to 0, and they'd have to slowly work their way back up, but they would never reach their original high number. And so, if you looked at this later, it would look as if an update was much more well received than it truly was. This was one of my early red flags where I started to not trust Ironmace. Now, in a live Q&A a long time ago, they were called out on this. SDF claimed he knew nothing, and he basically scapegoated his Discord moderators. You know, the classic corporate response, you know, I'm not directly involved, you know, I would never order them to do that, I don't know what they're doing, you know. It is classic, just another attempt to deflect away from responsibility and leadership. Nowadays, Ironmace is much more subtle with their manipulation. Sometimes they will completely reset all the emojis on an announcement like this. Next, Ironmace has never communicated with South Korean media in the past 3 years, until this month, which we'll get to. But consider that for a second. A company which constantly claims, we are experts who have worked on many of the biggest hits in Korea, okay? We believe in creating games with soul, blah, blah, blah. Usher in a new renaissance of awesome video games direct from Korea, blah, blah, blah. We want to show the world that Korea can build global gaming franchises, blah, blah, blah. Okay, all this stuff about the creative potential of Korea. But you don't speak to your own country's media. That doesn't seem right at all. Why only communicate through your controlled Discord and streamers who all have NDAs or signed contracts with you? Next, Ironmace also hired Soma and Odin. These guys at the time ran the only podcasts about Dark and Darker. Although they weren't very big, they're still one of the focal points for public opinion in this game. By hiring these two, Ironmace gains directly favorable control over all the Dark and Darker podcasts. Now, Ironmace employees are choosing which safe guests to have on the show. They get to control the conversations. Next, the night program was a predictable failure. This is another long story short. Basically, they wanted to teach people how to play the game. So, when you have 100,000 people that you need to teach or more, what do? Well, let me tell you what you don't do. There's no military or school system in the entire world which pairs experienced teachers or military personnel one by one with each recruit. That is ridiculous. You don't teach people one by one like this. No, you create training materials, videos, you share them, self-study, then you do group classes. So to me, the entire thing was a sham. It was never intended to help people. If you ask the people who tried to get help, they are sitting for months in a queue to get help, but they can't. And sometimes they just don't get help at all. They're ghosted. And besides, some of the creators who I saw joining this program clearly didn't want to help people. They're not those types of people from my point of view. They seemed like they were just there for the clout and to get closer to Ironmace. Next, I think the creator program is just to capture more creators into a pro-Ironmace position. There's really no point to be a balladeer or troubadour, and if you are one, you know it. Ironmace doesn't work with us, they don't do events, they don't schedule anything, there's no outreach. It's pointless, it's just a facade. And if you check, SDF has never posted at all. Correction, they did just release an emote for balladeers. Who cares? And actually, it's exploitable because it makes your weapons invisible. What's the point, man? Now, let's talk about Ironmace's history of bad hiring and management of employees. They are especially bad at the hiring and management of remote workers. Now, there are so many examples that we could discuss, but I've limited it to just a few. First, Liquid and Nessie were customer service guys who got in trouble for using TeamViewer to remote into people's computers. Regardless of the reasons, that is a huge potential legal issue and liability. You don't just casually ask for remote access into your customers' computers. Second, Vincent, Hyungjun, and Walpurgis Kid were all former employees of Ironmace. We're going to discuss the revelations in Walpurgis Kid's videos and statements after we discuss Soma. But you should know that it appears all three of these people never disclosed their position or relationship publicly, which I believe is illegal in South Korea and the US and many countries around the world. Vincent was also included in the first Twitch drops. Should Ironmace be including former secret employees in their Twitch drops, which brings them viewers and money? You might notice nowadays Vincent is currently one of the most popular streamers in Dark and Darker. Parthaxia was a former Ironmace anti-cheat team leader, and he was fired. He had a bad reputation of treating others poorly in the OCE community, where he's from. And he banned someone who he was facing in the arena live, which caused him to lose all his stuff. Regardless of the reasoning, it was unprofessional the way he did it. And I actually had an interaction with him. Long story short, I was range hacked by a barb live on stream. At the time, I did not have robust layers of protection. It was pretty bad back then. And so the hacker was able to get my IP and cut my stream. I went through Ironmace anti-cheat channels, and it was escalated to Parthaxia. It took a day before I actually got to talk to him, so of course the guy got away in the short term, and I had to end my stream that day. I couldn't keep going. Now, after being dismissive and unhelpful, he finally ghosted me, and I just couldn't get him to reply. In the end, the hacker got away, and my belief in the anti-cheat effectiveness was further eroded. I'm not really saying everything. I was kind of pushing them for the capabilities, and it seemed like their anti-cheat is really pathetic from my perspective. Anyways, let's move on to one of the worst cases, in my opinion, Soma, whose name is Jordan Taylor. Jordan was Ironmace's head of marketing for at least 11 months officially. I'll explain why we don't know later. First, let's talk about his career field, marketing. Marketers are basically professional wordsmiths, so you should expect a lot of them to be crafty and very good with words. And in my business experience, I've found a lot of them to be skilled at manipulating narratives and people. Of course, marketing is on a wide spectrum, right? And obviously there are ethically good marketers out there. But on the more shady end of that spectrum, I've seen a lot of people essentially taking shit and proclaiming it to be gold. But let's put a hold on my personal experiences and let's attempt to look at him objectively, despite my obvious personal bias. He claims he started on May 1st and that he worked for free for the month of April, which is about 11 months totally at Ironmace. But if you look at the Discord and search, it's public knowledge that Soma was working for Ironmace in the first week of April. Are you telling me Ironmace claimed publicly to have hired him, but he wasn't actually hired? He was just a volunteer? Something is not right here, and I can see their relationship going back further with Q&As and other stuff. Also, what the hell is a paid volunteer? Doesn't make sense. This really feels off, but I don't know the full picture here. Let's move on. What did he actually do for the 11 months at Ironmace besides collect a paycheck? When I questioned him recently, he claims he worked about 40 hours a week on average, sometimes more. In my opinion, the main reason Ironmace wanted him was for his mythic talent connections. Soma supposedly helped them prepare for Summer Games Fest and OTK Expo. Fair enough, that covers 1 or 2 months of work, but what about the rest of his time at Ironmace? All I can find are the crappy video ads he did with Odin and Lego Time Bomb.
I promise the fruits of our labor, the stuff Odin and I and Lego Time Bomb have been working on, it's finally going to see its day in the sun soon. And I'm very excited for it. I cannot wait to prove to SDF how awesome marketing can be and why marketing and advertising is essentially $1 trillion business globally, and why every single game studio and film studio and any company, utilizes.
Do you remember actions versus words? Those were some pretty strong hype words. Let's see the results. Wow, absolutely unfunny garbage. Even worse, they are taking the worst, most broken, most unbalanced parts and aspects of their game, and they're trying to package them and tout them as good aspects, which are the selling points which are going to draw people into the game. I mean, talk about being insanely out of touch. I've literally never seen Soma play Dark and Darker, and regardless, Ironmace senior leadership signed off on these stupid ads. Oof. Jordan also claimed to me last year that he was in charge of the first Twitch drops, which were very controversial, right? For feeding all the drops to the day 1 streamers, not the day 2 or 3. Although I asked him again in April, and he tried to backtrack on those claims, and he said SDF was in charge of picking the streamers. If you look at the list of streamers, especially the day 1 guys, it's full of his friends. A lot of the same people who were invited to an expensive private creator dinner in San Francisco, funded by Ironmace, which Jordan tried to invite me to. Now is a good time to discuss my personal interactions with him, but in conclusion, I really have no idea what Jordan did at Ironmace after the first 2 months, besides collect a paycheck, get a nice severance package, and make some crappy ads. Maybe that was his plan all along, to just coast and drift. I don't know. So, you must understand that to the greater public, and especially streamers, Soma appeared to be the highest ranking Western leader at the company, the head of marketing, a position of power and responsibility. He appeared to be the gatekeeper for streamers, deciding who gets to be involved with Ironmace's Twitch drops, which of course equals growth, more viewers, and more money. Now, it all started when he invited me on his podcast. I showed up early, and Jay and the Spud Hunter showed up late. Jordan was partially AFK, but we did have about 10 minutes to chat. It's the first time I've ever talked to him. Within the first 5 minutes, I felt like something was off. It seemed like he had intention behind every other sentence, and I was getting like fake salesman vibes. That's just my honest impression. He also almost canceled that show on me that day, which personally felt disrespectful since he had already delayed and rescheduled on me before. Anyways, I made it clear that I came prepared for his podcast with pages of notes on balancing and game design, and he assured me before the show multiple times that we would cover everything I wanted. However, after the late streamers arrived, we got into the conversation, and it centered around the new player experience for 45 minutes. Even he's just repeating himself, it felt like. I wanted to move on. Only when we were about halfway through did we finally start discussing the things I wanted, all the negative aspects of the current game, the balancing issues. But it felt like I kept getting cut short every time, or almost every time. Just perhaps I should have been more adamant, you know? But again, this is the powerful gatekeeper and for the streamers, and I didn't want to push too hard, you know? In the end, he supposedly had a hard stop, which he had to go, despite us being in the middle of really great balancing discussion. I never even got through half my notes and topics. Jordan said he'd definitely have me on again, though. I should also mention that he had a guest calendar for the podcast, but for some reason it was public, a little unprofessional, but it meant that everyone with the link could see that, you know, who was going to be up. And I could indeed see that he had me on the schedule for a future appearance at this time. Now, afterwards, we talked in DMs, and he said he wanted to chat about content creation. I think he was trying to come off as this experienced, friendly mentor, but beneath the facade, it felt like he wanted something, you know? So we set a date, and we talked for a little over an hour in a voice call on Discord. In this call, he basically tries to pitch himself to me as an expert who, I quote, has seen and done everything and has all the answers, which is a red flag, right? There was a lot of things we discussed in that call, but I'll focus on the big stuff. Early on, I told him that I knew both Odin and Feseb had leaked the Steam release early to their friend groups. Guess what? Nothing was done. I should have expected that, since later I would learn that Soma was sharing info with his friends. Anyways, Feseb was of course caught many months later, but they could have avoided all that if they had just listened and investigated. Anyways, also, very importantly, Jordan mentioned that he managed Jay Griffia, Repose, and Yami, and he was probably about to get another large streamer who I will not mention, since that streamer wished to remain anonymous, and as far as I can see, the streamer did turn Jordan down. Jordan also claimed Ironmace knew about these relationships and they were okay with it, and I quote, everything was above the board. Finally, Jordan tried to manage me. Yes, while he was working at Ironmace, Jordan tried to recruit me into his personal business. He wanted a double-digit percentage cut for handling the communication and negotiating with sponsors. But of course, he never mentioned bringing any new business, bringing value, right? When he described the limited scope of his services, to me, it felt like he was describing a simple middleman, a leech. Imagine my position. He is the gatekeeper to being in the inside group. I'm a passionate creator who has devoted my channel and free time to this game, which the head of marketing controls who gets in, who gets to join the drops, and who doesn't. Who has a relationship with Ironmace and who doesn't. The entire situation just felt like an abuse of power to me and an abuse of his position. It made me feel really bad for a long time. I tried to play it off in the moment as nicely as possible, and I tried to seem like I would keep, this open as an option. I didn't want to anger him or get on his bad side. And I think a part of me naively wanted to believe him. He talks about how he's at Twitch and I believe Stream Elements, and he brags about his clearance, which I don't think you should do, but let's move on. 2 weeks later, he invited me to a Dark and Darker creator dinner on September 20th at an expensive steakhouse in San Francisco. Initially, I said I would go, but later I said I would not. I knew what it could do for my channel if I went, to meet those other creators and to meet him, but the more I thought about it, it felt off. I don't know. I never got a guest list, but I'm sure you all can guess his friends were there. Probably Jay Griffia, Yami, Arcane Armor, Endboss, Ken Nabi, One Peg, So Bad Strange, you know the guys. Anyways, after declining this, he completely ghosted me. So, later I would check his podcast schedule and I saw that I had been removed from that future appearance. Also, when Twitch Drops finally released, I saw that I was not included. Instead, they included many small streamers, even a couple inactive people. Also, they included Wilson's Game, who, right or wrong, had just publicly and very messily and unprofessionally witch hunted another streamer in the community. And they even included the infamous Todd Father, the complaining yapper. No offense, Todd. Really, Ironmace wanted the Todd Father, but not me. I don't know, man. Come on, guys. Let's just talk about the truth. What's going on here? Anyways, look, in his head of marketing position, Soma could see Ironmace data like marketing plans, trends, and info, right? He's the head of marketing. We can only assume. So if he did share this info with his streamers that work for his personal business, or that are managed by him, then he gave a massive, unfair advantage that could boost his streamers and make himself and his streamers money. Ugh. So let's cover my recent questioning of Jordan, because I caught him in a lot of lies. The entire time that I questioned him, he was trying to pretend like he was my friend and that he had helped me a bunch. And this fake friendship rapport BS really disgusted me. The same way like a fake sleazy salesman who's trying to build that fake rapport would also disgust me. He claims he was just a contractor, so there's no conflict of interest. Now, I'm no lawyer, but I smell BS, and at the very least, very poor ethics, in my opinion. Is this not a legal liability to Ironmace? He also claims that he did disclose his relationships publicly about his streamers. Well, his streamers have tens of thousands of followers, right? So, when I search the Discords, various Discords, not just the official, the subreddit, the greater internet, why don't I find a single shred of proof of anyone talking about this or knowing this? That doesn't seem right. Even worse, he must think I'm a complete idiot because he tried to get me to ask his streamer and friend, Jay, to validate the truth of his claim. After I was done asking him questions recently, he tried to paint himself as a victim. I mentioned that I wish he had told the community the truth instead of taking the check from Ironmace and signing that NDA. And he tried to get sympathy from me by saying he's got bills to pay and he's got kids, but the dude lives in a very nice area of San Francisco, and San Francisco is frequently at the top of the most expensive cities to live in the USA. From what I understand, he's been there a long time. I'm just not believing his sob story. You want a real sob story? I'll give you one at the end of the video. Anyways, if you read his Reddit account and some of his Reddit comments, which are a little sketch, it appears he had a nice long severance pay. He doesn't seem to be struggling. Plenty of time to get another job. Finally, in the end, he wished to remain anonymous. In my opinion, I had just caught him in a bunch of lies. And of course, I doubt he wants the public to know the full truth, especially if any of this is illegal, which, you know, I'm not a lawyer. But again, he tried the fake friend angle with me more and invited me to his podcast. Yuck. Look, here's some FTC guidelines on good public disclosure. Perhaps Jordan and his streamers should read them, maybe with a lawyer. But this is a guy who claims he's seen and done everything from his time at Twitch and other places, so he really ought to know better. There's no excuse, in my opinion. Now, let's talk about Walpurgis Kid. On the one hand, he was an Ironmace employee who did not disclose his relationship with Ironmace. I believe this is wrong and illegal in the US, South Korea, Canada, and many other countries. However, I give credit where it is due. He risked himself, his reputation, and, very importantly, legal consequences by sharing the following information publicly in 2 videos on his YouTube channel. There was a ton of information in these videos, and I can't cover everything. Up next, I forgot to mention that it appears Grayson was leaking secrets about the game to Walpurgis even before he was hired. I've heard similar claims, and personally, I'm inclined to believe a lot of this. As always, this is the internet. Things can be faked, so make your own judgments. Now, Walpurgis Kid is one of the few Korean creators who actually play this game. He's been here since the early playtest days. Recently, he was complaining about a game-breaking bug, which Ironmace was not fixing for a long time. He seemed to get frustrated, and he made a video showing the bug and the exploit. As expected, he was banned, but then things got interesting. The next day, he released 2 videos which gave the following information. First, he accused Grayson, Ironmace's community manager, of cheating in Escape from Tarkov, arguably the definer of the genre and Dark and Darker's biggest competitor, I'd argue. He also complains that Grayson cared more about playing Tarkov than Dark and Darker. He also claimed Grayson was the bad gamer. And finally, my interpretation is that it seems like Grayson was a bit of a bully towards Walpurgis Kid. It seems like that's how Walpurgis Kid feels. Now, beyond these claims, he also said he was working at Ironmace until May last year. If true, he legally should have disclosed this. He really should have. But I've got more questions. Was he coached by Ironmace to hide this relationship? I don't know. But I am going to show you a bunch of screenshots, which I got from his video, and I'm going to show parts of his translated video message. Feel free to pause and read through all these. I don't have time to cover everything, and people are going to say some of it could be fake. And, it's possible. So I'd like you to look at it, and based on what you know of these people, make your own decisions. So, someone linked this in the creator chat, and Grayson deleted the message and claimed Walpurgis Kid is lying. So it's he said situation. Either Walpurgis Kid is lying or Grayson is lying. Hyungjun. I wonder how many other creators and streamers are secretly working with Ironmace. Another screenshot he posted appears to talk about SDF cheating in his own game. They claim he has 5 Nipalan artifacts and 29 chests, which is worth millions of gold. If true, I believe veterans will recognize there's no way he farmed it himself while running a company full-time and defending against multiple legal... Look, I just don't see how it's possible. Now, this could be fake, but who knows? Now let's talk about Grayson Johnson, Ironmace's longtime community manager. We've already mentioned Walpurgis's claims, and my personal impression of Grayson is that of someone who requires people to glaze him or inflate his ego. Otherwise, he won't pay attention to you or give you the time of day. Sounds like someone else I know. Also, I've seen him gaslighting and threatening multiple times. Here is just one example. Also, he has a bad habit of deleting important messages, like this one about no pay-to-win microtransactions. Also, there are allegations that Grayson uses multiple accounts to influence discussions and get info on certain people. I'll show you one obvious example, Nusyarg. Never mind that sketchy profile picture. Why don't we read his name backwards? Graysun. Wow, Grayson. What a smart guy. Also, Craps is Terrence. But look, we're not here to expose a bunch of alts that exist out there. There are more. I think you can draw your own conclusions. Finally, I've heard multiple times that Grayson has been leaking information to streamers. In conclusion, I personally think Grayson is an awful community manager, and if I see him working in another game, I'm going to run in the opposite direction. Next, Sebastian, or Feseb, was a former Ironmace employee who ran the Night Discord and Night program and worked on balance. As you know, the Night program was a massive failure in my opinion, and balancing has become infamously horrible. Now, why did Ironmace hire a 21-year-old for these important roles? I have no idea, except that he was friends with Grayson, and Ironmace does appear to enjoy hiring friends of employees. Which leads me to his rumored RMT situation. Now, people accuse him of knowing that unique spellbooks were going to turn into artifacts because of an upcoming update. I tried to follow up into this situation with some of the people that accused him, but I couldn't get the hard proof. I'm not saying it's not real. Okay, I think it did happen, in my opinion. Regardless, Ironmace scrubbed the Discord of him and deleted a bunch of messages. My assumption is that there's no reason to delete anything if it's not true, but I don't know. Also, in my digging, it appears at the time Feseb was just a tavern master, not an employee. So if this happened, then my thinking is either Feseb had access to the game data as a tavern master, or perhaps Grayson Johnson, his friend, leaked the info to him. Also, as I did mention earlier, Feseb leaked the Steam release alongside Odin, and I can only assume both of those continued leaking. Next section, Ironmace leadership is very out of touch, especially SDF, and it's been this way a long time. When I recorded and typed this section a long time ago, things were not as clear as they are today. As I mentioned earlier, SDF completely removed solos and duos from the game and managed to mess up normals as well. Super out of touch to destroy your player base's favorite and most played game modes. Take a look at the player count if you want to see the consequences. I think this game's going to be dead pretty soon. Also, I never mentioned, but they removed PvE. I mean, this sounds like a classic bait and switch to me. They put it in the trailer, they advertised it for this season. PvE's coming, and a bunch of people bought the game, and now they've removed PvE. I mean, what? Recently, SDF has been posting his his viewpoints in the Discord channel SDF's Kitchen. I think it's 60% out of touch and misleading and filled with a bunch of misframing and misdirection. And quite frankly, it's skipping over a lot of history. But look, these are just my opinions. Let's continue with a classic early access ethics problem. Sometimes developers can become millionaires in early access before their game is ever even close to being complete. As I've seen time and time again, certain devs with less character will have less incentive to complete their game. Updates might become slow and less dialed in. I've also seen a strategy, usually by larger corps or studios, where they'll simply mix things up every season, but they won't add any major large content update or changes. For example, in a class-based PvP game, the devs might occasionally mess with balance to keep things fresh enough without having to actually devote a lot of time or resources. The change in the meta makes people use the different classes or less used content that already exists in the game. It's just an easy, cheap way to do this. Ugh. Next, I want to explain for the newer people. The Dark and Darker used to have a different design direction. It used to be much more immersive, atmospheric, and like a strategic game. How you approached each situation mattered just as much as your reflexes or aim. You didn't really die in one shot. But now the time to kill has been super sped up. Players lose and gain health very, very quickly. The game has just devolved further into a ranged move speed, door, heal, chase, and gear diffing meta. Playing the markets is way more profitable than playing the actual game or bossing, and it's been that way for a long, long time. Go watch my last video over a year ago. All these changes, Next, during a live Q&A a long time ago, STF claimed he would get Demigod on all classes. See, now Demigod is so easy that you literally do not have to extract and you can still earn it. Back then, Demigod was much harder to get. You would lose like 2 to 2.5 wins worth of points just from dying one time. It was brutal. Veterans who knew this knew how ridiculous and out of touch his statement was. Someone working a full-time job making a game could not possibly have the time to earn this. To me, this was one of the early signs that the developers were no longer in touch with their game like they were during the playtests. Now, when b-hopping was first brought to the attention of the devs during a live Q&A, SDF initially claimed it wasn't an advantage or a problem. As current players know, this was out of touch. Many months later, this Ironmace eventually finally removed b-hopping and hot swapping from the game. We haven't even talked about hot swapping. It's been here forever. Oh, and hunting traps. Are you kidding me? It doesn't take a genius designer to realize and understand that a 15-second duration route on a character with damage effects does not have a place in a game with one-shots where you die so quickly. I mean, and worse, they had already nerfed it only to buff it again months later to 15 seconds with the highest rarity traps. Same repeated mistakes, they just never seem to learn. Oh, and gamers know most water maps suck, so I don't know why they're wasting so much time developing that new map. Perhaps they could fix the game first? Maybe fix game-breaking bugs that have been here for literally over 2 years? Just an idea. I'm just a dumb gamer. Now, Ironmace is often like 8 steps behind on solving these issues. Again, there are just so many examples. I mean, in the recent news, it's like hot swapping, b-hopping, druid being super OP in so many ways. But the past issues are like creep for all, which went on forever, double jump, it's here, it's gone, continuous matchmaking, rejoining, which just makes cheaters stronger, plus all, plus damage stacking, back and forth, weapon mastery fighter, free ESP for everyone bug, which was in the game for seasons, and so many others. Ironmace's motto should be always behind, usually blind. Let's move on. I'm ranting. All right, gamers, we're going off script. I haven't even written one. I don't have time to write it. We're just going to go off the cuff reading my notes. Look, these notes are very old. I was going to organize this video an entirely different way, but let's just continue. Ironmace's anti-cheat is extremely weak, so catching cheaters is very unlikely unless the cheaters actually make a mistake. Ironmace has absolutely no answer to hacks that are injected into the monitor. They have none. Cheating programs are available widespread online for free, and there's paid versions. Cheating programs have an almost unimaginable range of customizable options and advanced capabilities like ESP, HP, move speed hacks, armor, extra damage, attack speed, range hack, range loot, loot detection. It goes on and on. If you can imagine it, they probably have it. And there's lots of little things you can tweak to avoid the cheat detection stuff, right? To avoid detection. Just go to YouTube, type in dark and darker cheats. You can find people advertising that garbage all over the place. Cheating has increased over the past year, and there's been a major increase over the past 6 months. These notes are old. It's even worse. Back then, I said that cheating was usually focused on Asian servers, which I played on. They were horrible with cheating. And in US West, you can even catch them at like 2 a.m., 10 a.m. Pacific. And of course, OCE, those poor guys, have just been inundated with cheaters and complaining about it since the beginning. Ironmace did region lock them, but now they don't region lock that country anymore. I think it's because of investments and deals, but I don't have time to cover all that. Look, at this point, cheating is widespread on every single server. You don't even have to leave the US to find it, and it's no longer in the morning, it's at all hours of the day. Here's a fun fact. Most RMT in this game, the sellers are in Asia, and the buyers are in NA. All right, even streamers and creators are not safe. I explained to you my issue with Parthaxia. At the time, I was a medium-sized creator, and even I could not get help. So what do you think the average player is going to do? They can't get help. There's so many examples in the Discord of like balladeers saying, hey, I reported stuff, and literally no one has even viewed this. I put this on YouTube or something. There's 0 views. You guys claim to care, but it's BS. And you know what? They're totally right. Ironmace's support team really needs improvement. They're sometimes unprofessional. We've talked about that. Look, for every one of these issues, a long time ago, I was going to give Ironmace the answers as well as the effects on the gameplay loop, but we are so beyond that. All you need to know is that the game's integrity has completely degraded, and I think there's no hope for the cheating. There's so many other examples. Here's a good one. X3 Coop is a very well-known stream sniper, cheater, and human child. Literally, he's under 18, and figuratively. Despite receiving over 100 reports from many, many creators in the community, Ironmace still has not permanently banned X3 Coop. So, either one of two things is true. Either 1, they don't care and let him roam free, or 2, their anti-cheat, ban evasion, and stream sniping systems are all so ineffective and weak to the point that Ironmace cannot even keep a human child off their own video game. To me, that means there is absolutely no hope for catching the average cheater. Next, real money trading, RMT. Players can trade players can trade IRL wealth for in-game wealth, which is end-game winning power. You can literally buy the most powerful things in the game, even artifacts, which are OP, actually, some of them. Yeah, it's messed up. And the cycle goes backwards. Players can also trade in-game wealth, gear, weapons, or gold for real money. RMT increased over the past year and greatly over the past 6 months. This is old news. It's even worse now. RMT markets are available online across many different websites around the world. As far as I can see, I do not see Ironmace taking down these websites or these listings. You can find stuff from years ago. RMTers also sell accounts, boost AP, do arena ranks, help boss, buy leaderboard positions like religion, post stream sniping bounties in discords, and more. I ain't even going to scratch the surface of what's going on, boys and girls. Every game mode, in my opinion, is designed around gear diffing and abusing the gear score system and RMT. RMT can buy the best endgame weapons, items, right? So the RMTers are incentivized to RMT because they can gain an advantage in every single game mode. What I'm saying is RMTers can gain an advantage in every single game mode. That's how the game is designed. Okay? RMT is a major driver of inflation across the economy, as is religion. Free and paid applications exist to track market prices, trends, and histories. We're not even going to get into fences because there's a lot of RMT going on, but look, I'm done. So the game's just going to get worse and worse and worse as long as they continue to cater directly or indirectly to RMTers. Normal players are getting priced out of the market. They can't even buy stuff, right? Which means there's so much content in the game they can't even touch. How many players do you think have never touched an artifact? Be real. RMTers are going to win more fights, right? Because they have more wealth. They're going to take wealth from the other fair players. They have unfair advantages. Long story short, they are literally taking everyone's invested time, which is your most important asset, IRL. And again, it destroys the integrity of the entire game, every game mode. Let's move on. I was going to have a bunch of proposed solutions, again, to every section, but I'm tired. Look, it gets worse. Ironmace's actions, often directly and indirectly, help these cheaters, right? Like when they put things, let's not talk about all this. Epic Games deal, right? They made it 100% free. So cheaters and RMTers can now buy unlimited Dark and Darker accounts for like $3 on key resale websites. That's what happens. Go watch the podcast. Even streamers like Soapy, Seriously Soapy, and Ryan 6 Days a Week. These guys are like, oh yeah, I gotta make a bunch of accounts too. Like everyone knew it. All these cheaters are gonna go make a bunch of accounts and it's gonna inflate player numbers. Oh, I bet they like that. And, you know, maybe there's a deal where they get a bunch of money from Epic Games. I don't know. I really don't know. But that's usually how these things kind of work. Like with Epic Games, how they do their deals. Look, I don't have time to get into it. I'm going crazy. These people, man. Look, Ironmace has for a long time allowed streamers and creators to have special treatment and to cheat and break the rules multiple times without a permanent ban. Therefore, signaling to the entire community and cheaters that cheating won't really be punished. This signal increases the amount of cheaters, degrades the player base morale, degrades Ironmace's reputation, honestly. And finally, look, Ironmace allowed gambling streams for the longest time with RMT buy-ins. And by allow, I mean they didn't do about it, right? Like Twitch bits or subs or other behaviors which were against multiple platforms TOS like Twitch. And as far as I can see, were federally illegal in the US and certain countries. They're illegal gambling, illegal lotteries. Even like Greek God X was on there, Cam Soda. It doesn't matter. All these people were doing it and it's disgusting and I want to throw up. Let's move on. All right, there's no roadmap and no accountability at Ironmace, and I think that's by design. At one point, they claim they have an internal roadmap, but if you look at the history of what they've done, I don't believe it for a second. No roadmap means they're just not held accountable when they continue to make false promises and not deliver content that was promised. Like, you know, I don't know, Ice Caves, Arena, Expressman, Quivers, Backpacks, Druids, Sorcerer, countless late patches, Bard, so much more. There's no plan for solving gameplay or the cheating or RMT problem. There's no plan. They're flip-flopping back and forth. Go read SDF's Kitchen. I don't know what he's thinking. Does anybody know? I don't know what's going on there. There's just so many hasty, unthoughtful changes that are put into this game which negatively affect the players, and we're just left with a crappy game for so long before they fix it. It's a really disrespectful to players' time, and I really don't appreciate it. I don't think anyone does. Let's move on. There's late, buggy, unfinished, incohesive, and imbalanced content updates, and there's a super long history of this. I mean, any veterans who have been here through the whole thing, Godspeed, your patience must be insane, but you know what I'm talking about. Most of their content's delivered late, or there's countless delayed patches. Some content's over 6 months late. Some content doesn't even appear, even though they promised it. Even if they do release it on time or late, it's often unfinished and unbugged, and they'll just remove it from the game again. So what's the point of even having it? I mean, look, Expressmen, dungeon recoveries, map rotation, dragon boss matchmaking fix. Why did they even release it like that? What were they thinking? Leaderboard redesign, religion, continuous dungeon, continuous matchmaking, ice caves, arena, quivers, backpacks, druids, sorcerers, AP system fixes, inventory refactors, rebalancing of various systems, and so on. There are just so many issues, and some of these are like complicated multi-issues that we could talk about forever. Okay, Ironmace is awful with promising a deadline and then missing it. There have been multiple instances of Ironmace being on a live Q&A and promising a patch within 24 hours, and then they still miss that deadline. I mean, as a leader, you really have to consider and think to yourself, if I can't even make an honest timeline of when my stuff is going to be delivered, if I don't know like how my team can deliver and perform, why am I going to promise things like this? Why am I going to cause my player base to lose trust in my word? You lose your reputation. You make it worse. You lose trust. Okay. Look, Ironmace seems to be focusing their efforts on making really nice looking cosmetics. Go look at Tavern Table 3 instead of real content. This shows me what they really care about. Money. Example, cheap, ugly Unity monster assets with clipping issues versus the same season they released nice, polished, dynamic cosmetics with beautiful sounds and golden lobby screens. It looks nice. That's what they put their effort into, making money. Whatever, let's continue. Repeated bad decisions. This section could literally be Ironmace's entire history. This is a core part of their reputation. I mean, back and forth balance patches is probably the best example. Plus all, plus damage, plus move speed, double jump, axe specialization, creep for all, throwables, PDR, MDR curves, and so on. Really bad communication with the community over and over and over and over and over and over. Low quality sponsorships, in my opinion, where you're like downloading third-party programs which track you, or like sugar water crap coffee. Look, I used to be in Guatemala and Nicaragua. I've seen real coffee. I don't know why Americans drink this sugar water garbage. Okay, continuing on. There's failed and lame community events over and over. And finally, balance something but ignore the main issues, like so many different class balancing or the weapons and expo, like stow bypass time. I'm sorry, I can't explain everything. Look, let's move on. Okay, minor trauma warning beyond this point. This video was a lot of work and a lot of stress, and I am so happy to be done with it. If this video has been helpful or entertaining, or you want to support me in some way, please consider donating below. First, I cut over an hour from this video. I was going to go in depth into almost every problem with their game design and balancing. In addition, I had thoughtful solutions to every problem that I brought up. But I decided to remove all of that because I don't want to give Ironmace any free answers or free labor. They don't deserve it. That info is worth a lot of money to a company which clearly does not understand its own game. Besides, they implemented a lot of my ideas from over a year ago haphazardly and piecemeal, which of course doesn't produce the desired results. These game systems are incredibly complex, and they all rely on each other and affect each other. Anyways, I think Dark and Darker will be effectively dead soon without drastic course correction or buyouts. So even not mentioning the ongoing court cases. Now, where have I been for the past 11 months?